somebody again, you picture this in your mind. You picture somebody behind you touching your back once, twice, 3 times. Okay? Then picture them doing it fast. Okay? Then imagine that it's so fast that it's like as fast as if you put a card in the spoke of a bicycle and rode really fast. If it's too fast, it'll feel like you got touched 1 time. And if something only touched you one of those times that fast, and it didn't harm you or just touched you, you might not even perceive that it happened. So, if you picture that this is time, you can picture it in seconds or minutes or years, whatever units you want, but let's pretend that we're looking at something as small as milliseconds, and then as small as nanoseconds. A tiny little amount of time that you couldn't actually, we just don't have the capacity to time it out in our head. Because it's possible for us, and we do this electronically, we do this mechanically even, to make things that happen faster or more frequently than the scale of time that our brain mediates our awareness to us, the things that we actually can see or feel or experience in our consciousness. So let's say, though, that a person looks at a year and evaluates the last year that has gone by. When you ask them, how are you today? And they say, well, in May I had a bad headache. And let's see, back in February I actually had a nosebleed. It was dry that day. And you know, the day after New Year's 2016, I got dumped. So today, I'm terrible. Now, is it possible to find people who regulate how they are in their mood or in their feeling, how they perceive right now, on things that last that long? Well, pretend that instead of getting dumped could be bad. It could be a relationship you really care about. But what if it was you lost your legs in February? Or your parents and your siblings were all killed and you were the only one that lived and you were burned really badly. And then they ask you today, so how are you today? I'm terrible. You say, oh, that makes some sense. What if a person got their needle stuck in the phonograph record? You remember vinyls? Now we use them to go zit, 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 in the club, but it used to be that we listened to music at home with them, that sort of thing, and we never went zit, zit, zit because you wrecked it. And I don't know if it's wrecking it when I do that today, but what used to happen when we would get a scratch on it or some dust or something got in the wrong place in the track or some oil or something, it would do the same, like 3 words in the song, and then start over, start over, start over, and then start over, and it's going, oh shoot, we'd say the needle got stuck. Sometimes people, they think the needle stuck. I know people who had something bad happen to them, and I'm not saying that it doesn't justify their reaction, I'm just pointing out, matter of fact, what did happen. They got the needle stuck. They got married and then their spouse ran off and left them. 37 years ago. And if you ask them, how are you? Well, they still haven't come back to me, and I haven't heard a word, and I'm lonely, and the holidays are coming, and you're going, at some point, look, okay, I appreciate that this is a terrible thing, but you're putting your life in a toilet for the rest of your life over this thing. Can you at some point turn the page and redefine, do something. So you can have this business where you allow these huge long periods for the bad stuff, which is what is focused on, not the good things, to just spoil it all. So let's say that somebody has it down instead to a month, okay? So this is 1 month that goes by to this point. This is now, I'll put it here, 1 month, and this is a month ago. So you ask somebody, hey, how are you doing? But right here, before the month, their house burned to the ground, and they lost everything, and they're gone. Okay? I have people in mind that I know, and that I've been talking to several times a week since they lost their house and it burns clear to the ground in Lake County this summer. And I talk to them on Facebook. And you know what? I'm seeing no mention of the fact that their house burned down. They're now located somewhere that isn't as good by comparison. They weren't fully insured. They've redefined, they're carrying on, and they seem just as happy as they did in the spring before the house burned down. So if I say, how's it going? The person is saying, it's going really well. They're not referencing this really at all. Okay? So what happens instead if this is only a week? Okay? If just before Thanksgiving somebody had a wreck and their back and their neck are still stiff and their car is still gone and it wasn't insured. And it was their own fault. There was someone else involved, and the other person got hurt, and they had insurance, whatever. So that was more than a week ago. So you say, "How you doing?" The person goes, "Great." You go, well, "How can they say that?" There are people who that's exactly the reaction that you will get if it was a week ago. Okay, well, what if? What if it's only a day during which a person references how they're doing? We should keep that. What if it's one day? What if you know that yesterday was terrible? You know that the person had a terrible day. You saw them fall down and injure themselves, and their backpack with everything in it they need for this quarter, their notes that they need for all the finals coming up, handwritten notes for all the papers that they need to write, with they haven't started yet, just with the notes. And that was stolen, and you know it. And you ask them today, "How you doing?" They're going, "Oh, fine." And they seem genuinely peaceful and happy, and it was just yesterday. They haven't even sorted all that out yet. You go, "Wow, that's pretty good." Well, what if instead it was an hour? So at 7 o'clock this morning, someone got a call that something horrible happened. And you saw them taking the call, and had tears in their eyes. You go, "What's the matter?" And they tell you about it, and you go, "Oh, I'm so sorry." You go, "Yeah, this hurts my heart." My feelings are just devastated by this. And then right now you see them, and "How you doing?" "I'm great." "No, seriously, how you doing?" "No, seriously, I'm great." "Well, what about yada yada?" "Yeah, that happened." "Well, how are you now?" "Fine." "Well, how can you be?" "Just am." You see where this is going? Does anyone see this shrinking? What if it's minute by minute? What if it's minute by minute? Somebody says something that just really is such an insult, and it's somebody you really care what they think. you're in a conversation with them and they say something and it's like, well, of course you wouldn't understand. You're going, that was sure nice. You know, it makes your heart have that, I mean, your stomach have that kind of feeling in it. Go, oh, why the hell down? I'm not doing you like that. Why are you doing me like that? Why'd you do that to me? And then, 2 minutes go by, and they're back up, and everything is on track, and they've got their arm around the person, and no harm, no foul. Oh, now that would actually be a little bit unusual. It's not impossible to find people like that, but now we're getting to where it's getting a little rare. It's like, when you do me like that, I need a few hours to try to reframe that and for the cortisol to become metabolized and sorted out and levels to go down and for my blood pressure to go down. I need some time for my parasympathetic nervous system to chill me out. Too much adrenaline. I need some serotonin to come to the rescue. But what if it was second by second? You're just taking it 1 second at a time. So something happened, you notice it, and a second goes by, like that, and you're all good. You're automatically always pressing the reset, no matter what has happened. Each second, you're pressing the reset. Well, first of all, what that requires is you're living in, you're dwelling in, you're occupying in your awareness. You're sampling and completely reassessing based only on what has happened in the last second. Now, there could be some things that persist. If you're getting a beating and it lasts more than a second, 1 second you feel terrible, and the next second goes by and you check and you say, I'm still getting a beating, I feel terrible. And the next second, a minute goes by and now they're kicking you good and you're saying, okay, it's still bad. But as soon as it stops, then you've got some residual pain. It still hurts. I still got a broken head, I still got bruises. I'm still oozing. This is bad. I'm leaking. So 1 second would make it so that the stuff that doesn't continue to hurt can stop hurting. But even emotional things, if you live in the second, your neurology and your endocrinology, the processes that are occurring in the network of your nervous system and your hormones that are circulating through your body, they actually have lag times in many cases that are longer than a second. So you can have carryover that you can't help. They impose themselves on you. But what would happen if anybody got it down to that? What would that look like? You see, when time goes by, it means that your awareness is being mediated by comparison of states. And we were shrinking. We were shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, getting those two samplings closer together. But what happens if it gets to 0? Well, it means we're not actually making any comparisons at all. We are actually, ready for this? We're not actually able to evaluate at all. It means that we're living without making any evaluations, any comparisons between moment and moment. There's no sampling rate because it's 0. There's no way to compare when there's not 2 points. There's only the point you're currently in at every instant. And points have no link. Points are instantaneous. This would be somebody who escaped time. This would be somebody who in every moment, it's pretty much the same thing as dwelling in eternity. Will we get to this point? How could we get to this point? Well, in point of fact, in our number of dimensions, it's like being on the stick guy on the chalkboard. We're out here, and if I draw a guy on the chalkboard, the guy on the chalkboard cannot perceive us out here because the guy on the chalkboard doesn't have this. The guy on the chalkboard has these directions, up and down, left and right only. So what are we? So to us, we're like the chalkboard to another whole realm. That is the realm that we're interfacing with or trying to conceive of somehow, which is beyond our capacity in our spirituality. People don't know what to call it. Sometimes they're looking for something like magic. They hope to have some Harry Potter action going on. Some people are looking at it as escape. Some people are looking at it as a sort of, not escape, but a place to kind of go and draw from and then come back. People are looking at it as a destination. Some people look at it as nonsense. It's just a fallacy. If I can't see it and measure it, then it can't be real. Well, we know that realm is there. We don't just know it from religion. We know it from physics. We know it, in a sense, from math. We can't explain rationally what we observe in our four-dimensional chalkboard without granting that there are other dimensions. So you could have the capacity to be at zero and have no time go by, but then to come off of our chalkboard, so to speak, to add one more dimension and have an infinity there without advancing the clock at all. And I'm not saying that this is something that you can just get a special incantation or a formula to cause this to happen. But I would say this. What if you can approach this? What if you can actually get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer all the time to dwelling in the instant? Do you realize that if you had your actual consciousness, if you were capable, even in brief periods, on purpose, if you were capable of living to where your awareness is only instantaneous, that's too short a period of time for you to feel pain, any pain, because pain requires the comparison from one time to the next time. And there's actually, just like regular touch or visual or a sound, stimulus like that prompt to cause your experience, from your senses, even your internal senses, has to have the stimulus last a certain amount of time. So if it's zero, you would not feel pain. This is how some mystics are able to actually undergo surgeries without anesthesia, because they can choose to not feel the pain.
This is kind of a little off topic, sorry, but have you heard of or seen the movie Arrival? It's New York,
I think that my daughter told me I had to see Arrival.
Yeah, I think you would appreciate it because it kind of has this, when you watch it, it's different than what we're used to because it kind of reshapes what time is. And instead of doing that time is on a parallel plane, it's all mixed in together, like future, present, and past. And it's really interesting how they.
So they're playing with escaping our limitations in the space-time continuum.
In a sense, that's not what the point of the story is, but that kind of is what the point of the
Well,
story is.
that might help us to understand this kind of thing. It might give us something concrete for our imagination for something that is not concrete at all.
Right, because when you watch, like when you watch it, you know, it doesn't even have your everyday life, like,
Yeah.
you know, like, talking to the past, there's nothing right now, and in the future, right?
Yeah.
But in the movie, it's like, it's all intertwined, and you don't know what the beginning or the end is.
Well, isn't that a little bit reminiscent of texts that say things like, before Abraham was, I am. And hey, a day is like 1,000 years to me. Right? I am, when God answered Moses' question, asking for his name at the burning bush, during the time he was dwelling in the desert, the answer that we have in English is I am. The name was just I am. That's not actually the form that's in the Hebrew. It's hard to express because it plays with the tenets of that answer, of that word. And it would be a little closer to English to translate it, I am the always having been will being. What's that? It's a mental gymnastics is what it is. In your steps to Christ, in the chapter that is called The Knowledge of God, that's the 10th chapter, page 57. The paragraph that starts on the bottom of the page says, if we will but listen. Now check that out. If we will listen. God's created works will teach us precious lessons of obedience and trust. From the stars that in their trackless courses through space follow from age to age their appointed path, down to the minutest atom. So now, this is, to me, when I read this, this is a suggestion that listening, you ready? This is going to sound ridiculous to you humanities majors, and to you that believe that school is about getting a job after you get out. This is an admonition to study physics, to study astrophysics, and to study particle physics. And if you're not doing it, then you're not reading that book. Remember Ellen White said, nature and revelation alike testify that God is love, and it starts the book like that here. From the stars that in their trackless courses through space follow from age to age their appointed path, down to the minutest atom. The things of nature obey the Creator's will. So it says, if we'll just listen, and man, there's a lot of information available. There's a lot of images available. We've never had better study tools. We've never had better ears with which to listen to nature in recorded history than we have now. And God cares for everything and sustains everyone that He has created. He who upholds the unnumbered worlds throughout immensity, at the same time cares for the wants of the little brown sparrow that sings its humble song without fear. When men go forth to their daily toil, you know, when you're down at the flashing red light, people are trying to get to work and they're backed up almost to the hospital, or they're on their way to go do their daily toil. When men go forth to the daily toil, as when they engage in prayer, when they lie down at night, and when they rise in the morning, when the rich man feasts in his palace, or when the poor man gathers his children about the scanty board. That means almost empty table. Each is tenderly watched by the Heavenly Father. No tears are shed, that God does not notice. There is no smile that he does not mark. If we would but fully believe this, all undue anxieties would be dismissed. Think of that. Anyone ever anxious? You ever have anxiety? Our lives would not be so filled with disappointment as it is now. Now, that doesn't mean that things wouldn't happen that are disappointing things. It just says our lives wouldn't be filled with the disappointment. Perhaps shrinking the time that we celebrate disappointment would keep our lives from always being filled with it. Our lives would not be so filled with disappointment as now, for everything, whether great or small, would be left in the hands of God. Who is not perplexed by the multiplicity of cares, or overwhelmed by their weight? We should then enjoy a rest of soul to which many have long been strangers. As your senses delight in the attractive loveliness of the earth. And is that something that happens to you? Are you the object of that? Are you a victim of that, so to speak? What do you do? It's a plastic plant, realizing that it's all plastic. I'll be darned. I mean, they make these things more real all the time. Think of it. A deciduous plastic plant. How do they make those? I mean, given what we're reading, some of you should have some shivers. It's not alive, is it?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's quite dead.
That is even weirder because
Yeah, what were we just saying? Wow. As your senses delight in the attractive loveliness of the earth, and does nature have a sense of humor? Can we see God's sense of humor in nature? Or are we so tuned to the godless physicalism insisted upon like it was knowledge and not just an alternate religion, that when something like that happens, our minds immediately dismiss it, even though funny, we say, of course, that would never be something that God would do. Because that's play like we think of in church. Wow, the charm and the magic goes out of life. We're like dead people with nothing charming at all. When we're that skeptical. We don't have to be nuts either, so that every time we take a step, we go, whoa, how did the stars line up so that it took that step? You can get to be nuts. But I mean, all through in nature, not just the stars and the atoms, but the math of the thing. The math itself, which Einstein and others said, was the language with which God wrote the universe. And I will add, and is still writing it. Is still writing it. The book hasn't come to its conclusion. It's just getting started. God is still writing it. And the math is the language. So one of the things that I like to do is actually ponder the probability mathematics of the things that occur. Especially the things we go, oh, that was a coincidence. Oh, how did that happen? How was it that someone that I haven't thought about for how long? For a year, for 16 years, or whatever, that I think about them for a few minutes, and then my phone rings and it's them, and I haven't talked to them in years. Tell me you never have anything like that happen. Tell me your life has nothing like that. You go, okay, ooh, that was strange. But then you think, coincidence is a funny thing. Why do that? Why have that habit of being so faithless? Now, it's also stupid to say, I know exactly what that meant. And then to think that we're a diviner with a special gift when we don't have it. Maybe we do, but we probably don't. Just be amazed. Just allow ourselves to be in awe at the miracles. Even the regular stuff is miraculous. The probability of just the regular stuff and the silly things that happen, we can go, huh, I'm not sure what that means, but it's cool. Like that. It's kind of funny. As your senses delight in the attractive loveliness of the earth, and I'll add to that, and the humor that's in nature. Think of the world that is to come. Think of the world that is to come. That shall never know the light of sin and death, where the face of nature will no more wear the shadow of the curse. Let your imagination picture the home of the saved. And remember that it will be more glorious than your brightest imagination can portray. Right here, there is an invitation to use. Not just to say, hey, I could if I wanted to. Someday I might. Or, hey, here's something that I could have done but didn't. To use your imagination. To ponder those exact things. No. To grapple with it. To build the best images. To invite God to participate in your imagination as you do what is said here. To picture the home of the saved. And to remember that it can be more glorious than our imagination could ever portray. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Eye hath not seen nor ear heard. You ever heard that passage? Eye hath not seen nor ear heard. Very good. Can you say it again? Say it again loud. Everybody listen.
I have not seen nor ear heard, nor has entered into man's imagination what God hath planned for those who love him.
Outstanding. In the very gifts of God in nature, we see but the faintest gleaming of His glory. It is written, Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, nor hath entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love Him. 1 Corinthians 2, verse 9. Listen to this. All of you who have heard that, except unless we become as little children, we're not going to be in God's kingdom. Parents should seek to comprehend the fact that they are to train their children for the courts of God. When they are entrusted with children, it is the same as though Christ placed them in their arms and said, train these children for me, that they may shine in the courts of God. One of the first sounds that should attract their attention is the name of Jesus. And in their earliest years, they should be led to the footstool of prayer. Here's the point that I want to make, the last sentence of that paragraph. Their minds should be filled with stories of the life of the Lord, and their imaginations encouraged in picturing the glories of the world to come. Their imaginations encouraged in picturing the glories of the world to come. Why teach that to children? Because it should be their lifelong habit. Our imaginations, to fill our imaginations with what it's going to be like in a world that has no sin. in a world without any selfishness. In a world in which people's love for each other rivals their love for themselves. Imagine doing this. When you say, okay, I prayed. It took me 30 seconds, or it took me a minute and a half, or I worked through the list in that little 3x5 card in my Bible of people I'm praying for, and I have my prayer list, and it's fine to have the kind of prayer. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with the kind of prayer life in which we go and sit on Santa Claus's lap, so to speak, and ask for the things we want that are on our list. That's fine. But if that's all there is, how much relationship do you have with the Santa Claus at the mall? Right? You get your picture taken, and you say, what I want for Christmas is, I want a Ferrari, and some Air Jordans, and some of those pink Ray-Bans. I want that. And I want the new iPhone, and I want a new color laser printer, and I want the newest Apple TV. Mine's the name. You give the list. That's okay. But imagine this. And by the way, I've done this. Literally, I did this for 5 years. Each summer at camp meeting in the Arizona conference, I was in charge of the junior division, the 5th and 6th graders, 10, 11-year-olds. We scheduled an all-night prayer for 10 and 11-year-olds. 10 and 11-year-olds came together, and he didn't sleep that night. They spent the whole night praying. They were 10 and 11. And they were in ecstasy. They begged to do it again before camp meeting ended. We didn't do it twice. We only did it the one time each year. But one of the things we did was take, with 10 and 11-year-olds, you think about their attention span, all right? We took 2 hours of that time to imagine, to close our eyes and actively imagine elaborately that we were in the new earth. Everything had been created perfectly, and they were to navigate in the streets of the new earth to their home, the one they would live in. So we took time to construct it, to design it, and then change a few things and back away and look at it. We came inside and we furnished it. We decorated inside. We went back outside and addressed the landscaping some more. We filled the cupboards. We filled the refrigerator. And then we sat down on the couch and said, I think I got it. Looking around, and then there was a knock on the door. Who is it? Perfect. I love it. See what I mean? Charm. Go through life blowing off awesome stuff, or celebrate it like, well, that was cool.
What is our paper? What's our paper?
We're not there yet. And when they opened the door, it was Jesus. And then we said, we'll invite him in. Where will you see him? Ask him if he's hungry. He is hungry. We spent that time then with them, having set that up, then having this conversation with Jesus himself for 2 hours. Oh, I dare you to play in your imagination like that. paper is due a week from today before class starts when you walk in the door. It should be submitted online. There will be a place online to put it on the course website. Do not print it out. I do not want to kill a tree for it.
I think she deserves a cursed dollar.
No, it was out of time.
Really?
It was out of context. I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. How long that would take. If you wanted to talk to this I wouldn't know how long you wanted to talk to me until we started talking. I don't know. I intend not to rush a paper or to try to.
No, he put art in the same
That was locked.
There is no.
Can you tell Chino to open it again?
I'm hungry. I'm hungry.